Hello, everybody. This is Don Blomdahl, Hall of Fame veteran, sports cards and collectibles, coming to you from Arlington, Washington. Sorry, this isn't my live stream, but what I'm doing here is I'm pre-recording this, and I will post it up and make it public on Friday, this coming Friday, July 26th. So this is my Hall of Fame Fridays 2008 inductees series. So this is the next continuing video in my stream for this series of 2008 inductees. So we have 6 inductees today. 6 inductees. We have Barney Dreyfuss. Inducted in 2008, Pittsburgh Pirates, and he was an executive. Next, we have Goose Gossage. Here. He was inducted in 2008. Primary team was the New York Yankees, and he was a pitcher. Next, we have Bowie Kuhn. You're inducted 2008. He was an executive, an MLB executive. Then we have Walter O'Malley, 2008 inductee for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He was an executive for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Next, we have Billy Southworth. Billy Southworth was inducted in 2008. He played for the he managed the St. Louis Cardinals. And then lastly, over here, we have Dick Williams. Dick Williams' year inducted was 2008. His primary team was the Montreal Expos, and he was their manager. He was inducted as a manager into the Hall of Fame. However, this is a little bit different. He did play baseball before he went into the majors. So this is his 1903 baseball card. Richard H. Williams, commonly known as Dick Williams. And this is what the back of these cards look like. All right. So this is Dick Williams. And he's our 6th inductee. So those are our 6 inductees for this video series. So without further ado, I'm going to just scroll up just a little bit here. I think I'll be in the video here now, so you can see me. So Barney Dreyfuss. Barney Dreyfuss is our first inductee. Hope everybody's having a great day and a great Friday, and looking forward to your weekend coming up. So Barney Dreyfuss. Bernard Dreyfuss, inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2008. His primary team was the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he was an executive for them. In so many ways, baseball is one of the few sports where physical size is not an automatic benefit or detriment. In basketball, height is a tangible that leads to success. In football, size is often viewed as a virtue. But in baseball, greatness comes in all sizes and packages. So to this end, one can ask the question, how large does someone need to be to cast a tall shadow? How do you mean measure greatness in baseball? Is it by hitting 600 home runs? Is it by winning 300 games? Or could it be that the answer lies not only in the stats, but also in the capacity to allow people to accrue these numbers? With this in mind, perhaps no Hall of Famer is larger in stature than Pittsburgh Pirates owner Barney Dreyfuss. Dreyfuss was brought into the game in a rather simple fashion. At the suggestion of his doctor, born in 1865 in Freiburg, Grand Duchy of Baden, before the country was known as Germany. Dreyfuss started on a very different path as a young employee of a bank in a city. At age 19, he was beckoned to Paducah, Kentucky, by relatives Isaac and Bernard Bernheim. who operated a brewery. Dreyfus worked tirelessly as an accountant and soon became a partner in the firm. His physician felt he lacked exercise, so Dreyfus took up the game of baseball. While he dabbled with playing second base, two things happened that set him on a grand course. First, he fell in love with the game. Second, he realized that maybe his true calling was not with a bat and glove, but with a clipboard. Dreyfus helped organize semi-pro teams in Pudaka, using a large number of players from his own brewery. In 1888, the Bernheim brothers expanded the move and moved their operations to Louisville in 1890. After only 2 years, Dreyfus, along with other brewers in Louisville, became part owners of Louisville Colonels in the American Association, a major league rival of the National League. The Colonels joined the National League in 1892 as Dreyfus continued to learn about the management of the team as part owner. After the 1899 season, it was clear that the National League did not intend to continue with 12 teams. The American League was formed in 1901 and began to raid rosters of the established National League franchises. Thinking that the prospects for his Louisville franchise were not great, he negotiated a deal to sell his ownership rights to the Colonels and purchase a half interest in the Pirates. When the decision was made to remove Louisville from the National League, along with Washington, Cleveland, and Baltimore, he executed his plan and became part owner of the Pirates. But before he was done, he orchestrated a trade on December 7th, 1899 that moved the best players from Louisville to Pittsburgh. The trade set Pittsburgh up to be one of the best franchises during the first decade of the 20th century and included player-manager Fred Clark, Tommy Leach, Ruby Waddell, and one of the game's greatest players, Honus Wagner. The Pirates would win the National League pennants in 1901, 1902, and 1903. During this early success for the Pirates, baseball was going through a tumultuous time. Teams in both leagues were competing fervently, not only for bragging rights as to the superior league, but also for the best players. In Pittsburgh, Dreyfus thwarted an attempt by his partners, William Kerr, to buy him out of the club. At the end of the 1902 season, Dreyfus and owners created the National Agreement, the structure putting an end to this war between the leagues. While this led to all major league teams honoring player contracts and relative peace between the leagues, there was not a means of crowning a single champion at the end of the season. In 1903, as the Pirates and Boston Americans of the American League worked toward their respective pennants, sports writers started asking for a way to determine the true champion of baseball. Dreyfus fully understood that by winning a championship against the American League, he would be able to showcase the superiority of the league. He contacted Boston owner Henry Killia, and they worked out provisions for the first World Series. The best of 9 series would be played after the season, with Dreyfus fully expecting his team to win. However, injuries weakened his team, and the upstart Americans won the first Fall Classic. While it was not played in 1904, the series, based in large part on Dreyfus's ideals, resumed in 1905, has become one of sport's greatest traditions. Dreyfus would watch his Pirates win 2 World Series championships in 1909 over the Detroit Tigers and 1925 over the Washington Senators. While the fortunes of the Pirates on the field varied, Dreyfus provided for the team and for baseball. a steadfast voice of reason and fairness. In the wake of the Black Sox scandal, when baseball needed a strong and authoritative voice to protect its integrity, it was Dreyfus who pushed for the creation of the office of commissioner. Instead of running from the issues, he met them head on. And perhaps the move that is most symbolic of the respect that he garnered from other owners, he was central in the scheduling discussion. While it can be viewed as one of the least interesting elements of the work, scheduling enabled teams to fairly distribute holidays and provide logical schedules, ensuring that travel was viable. Dreyfus was front and center every year on the establishment of the schedule. When Dreyfus bought into the Pirates, they were playing in Exposition Field, a modest ballpark on the northern bank of the Allegheny River near the current PNC Park. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette sports editor Harvey Boyle described Exposition as a flea-bitten park of a humble size and general unimpressiveness on the north side. To make matters worse, on occasion the right field corner, which was but yards from the river, would become murky and swampy, not lending itself to a high caliber of performance for the team. Change occurred in 1909 when Dreyfus single-handedly changed the Pirates' home. On June 30th, 1909, after 6 months of construction, the Pirates opened Forbes Field in the Oakland neighborhood of Pittsburgh. Built in the shadows of the Carnegie Library, Shalini Park, Forbes Field revolutionized the way people saw baseball in the city. The concrete and steel ballpark was the first of a new wave of parks featuring a double deck. While no one could argue with its beauty, many thought that Dreyfus was risking too much to build it. Others in baseball saw the stadium as grander as it should be. The location, about 3 miles from downtown and the elegant east end of Pittsburgh, was too far for most people to attend. Many felt that once the novelty was gone, people would not travel to the park. As John Kieran reflected in his column on the passing of Dreyfus in 1932, the naysayers all lamented that Forbes Field was too big for baseball. But they were businessmen, and Dreyfus was a fan. As someone who sat in the stand for every game, Dreyfus knew the experience that he wanted. He knew what would draw people to the ballpark. He knew what would get a fan to come back time and time again to watch baseball. And in almost every way, they did. Through everything that Dreyfus did in baseball, he was a fan first. He excelled in building a great stadium, creating the World Series, ensuring equity and fair treatments of the teams, and building a superior team on the field. In 1908, a feature article on Dreyfus in Baseball Magazine, it was written, "They know him as one of the big men of baseball, as a leading club owner in the grand old National League, as one of the best judges of a baseball player in the business, as almost a friend on the dope of the game." The article added that he never misses a game played at Exposition Park in Pittsburgh, and he never fails to keep a detailed score of the contest. His deep knowledge, known as dope of the game, and the abilities of the players was legendary. Long before computers made statistics easy to gather and find, excuse me, got a tickle in my nose. Dreyfus kept careful notes on the players at every level. Dreyfus adored the game and passed that same love along to his son, Sam, who was poised to take over the franchise. In 1930, Sam took over day-to-day operations of the club. Tragically, Sam died 1 year later from pneumonia. Heartbroken from the loss of his son, Dreyfus returned to the wars once again, led led the team, but that would be short-lived. Dreyfus died on February 5th, 1932, also of pneumonia. Barney Dreyfus lived the American dream. While most kids do not dream of being a team owner, building a ballpark, and setting a schedule, visionaries like Dreyfus allow it to all to happen. His sense of fairness ensured all major league teams were on the same footing. His sense of being a fan led to a whole generation of ballparks that were nothing less than places. His understanding of the game allowed him to build some of the strongest teams that ever took the field. His sense of competition allowed the creation of the World Series, the ultimate stage on which baseball is played. In so many ways, Barney Dreyfus served as a facilitator of our dreams, making the long journey to Cooperstown. So there we have it, our first 2008 inductee, Barney Dreyfus. This is, for those that haven't seen these videos, this is not a baseball card because he didn't have a baseball card, but these baseball card postcards, I'll show you the back real quick, were able to be purchased when the inductees got inducted. So they'd make a set of these cards. I've got a complete set of all the inductees. I'm waiting on my new order coming in for the 2009 inductees. Now that they just had the ceremony, I was able to pre-order my postcards to keep my set up to date. But that was our first inductee for 2008. So our next inductee is Goose Gossage. Goose Gossage. So Goose Gossage's full name is Richard Michael Gossage, commonly known as Goose Gossage. Both an opponent and teammate of Rich Goose Gossage, once said of the fireballing pitcher, "He's all arms and legs and he's not looking at you. That doesn't make you feel good. When he's throwing 100 miles an hour, I don't mind a guy throwing 100 miles an hour if he's looking at you. I'll tell you, it's a lot better playing behind him." Gossage could be an intimidating presence on the mound, standing 6'3" tall and solidly built, with a deathly scowl. But of all his attributes, it was his overpowering fastball, which could reach 100 miles per hour for the day, which made him one of the top relief pitchers throughout the 70s and 80s. "My wife wouldn't know me out there," Gossage said. "If she ever came to the mound and talked to me, she'd divorce me. I don't like anybody with a bat in his hands because he's trying to hurt me with that thing. My wife wouldn't know me out there." Hate is an ugly word, but I hate hitters. A rookie relief pitcher with the White Sox in 1972, Gossage established himself as a premier closer by the mid-70s. After spending 1976 as a starting pitcher, he was traded to the Pirates, where he began a 12-year streak of double-figure saves totals. "I love the feeling of coming to the ballpark every day and knowing I've got a chance to work," Gossage said. "I'd go crazy as a starter. Imagine having a bad game and then having to sit around 4 or 5 days before you pitch again. You'd be thinking about it all the time. That would be terrible." Free agency followed, and Gossage signed a contract with the Yankees in November 1977. His 6 years as the New York closer included 4 All-Star teams, 150 saves, and a 2.10 ERA. He was also on the mound to finish the 78 playoff game against the Red Sox. "We know before the game starts that he'll be coming in the 8th or 9th if the game is close," said fellow Hall of Famer Carl Yastrzemski. "There's nothing you can do." Well, there is. You can try to have a big lead. Signing a free agent deal with the Padres prior to the 1984 season provided immediate dividends for Gossich's new ball club, as his 10 wins and 25 saves helped San Diego to its first ever World Series. When Gossich, a 9-time All-Star, finally retired after the 1994 season, he had built up quite a resume, finishing a 22-year big league career with 9 different big league clubs. His lifetime statistics include 124 wins, 107 loss record, 3.10 ERA, 1,002 games, 310 saves, 1,809 and a third innings pitched, and 1,502 strikeouts. When asked how he'd like to be remembered, Gossage said, "I gave them their money's worth." So Goose Gossage. So this is a Panini product, I believe it is. Yeah, this is from the Panini Hall of Fame or Cooperstown Signatures collection, and this is a signed card by Goose Gossage back in the day. But this is the Cooperstown cards, and it's serialized 224 out of 499, so he only signed 499 of these cards for this series. And this series came out in, let me see if it says on the back here. Doesn't really say what year. I'm trying to remember what year it was. I broke these cards open online on one of my videos. That's when I pulled this card. So I used that for my Hall of Fame Friday 2008. So again, Goose Gossage is our second Hall of Famer. So now as we move on to our third one in the lineup here for today, right here, over his information for his induction in 2008. Bowie Kuhn, Hall of Fame inductee in 2008. He was an executive for Major League Baseball. A lawyer by trade, Bowie Kuhn went from working the scoreboard at Washington Griffith Stadium to becoming a Major League Baseball's 5th commissioner back in 1969. During his 15-year tenure, baseball experienced dramatic increases in attendance, salaries, revenues, and franchise values. After working for the Senators for $1 a day as a boy, Kuhn served more than a decade as a legal counselor for the National League before he was chosen to succeed William Eckert as commissioner. Though he was given a 1-year interim term, Kuhn quickly showed his skills when he successfully negotiated a dispute with the players' union over pension funds. Kuhn's tenure was marked by several periods of labor strife, most notably when star outfielders Curt Flood argued that baseball's reserve clause violated federal antitrust law. Kuhn opposed Flood and won in the Supreme Court to maintain the reserve clause, but the case laid the foundation for the eventual adoption of free agency. Baseball would see player strikes take place in 1972 and 1981. However, Kuhn stood firm and ensured that the World Series was played in each of those 2 seasons. Kuhn also experienced several memorable clashes with some of the game's most famous owners. He fined Oakland A's owner Charlie Finley on several occasions, suspended Yankees owner George Steinbrenner for making illegal contributions to President Richard Nixon's election campaign. Despite the turbulent relations between players and management during the 1970s, Kuhn won the favor of many when he pushed for the inclusion of the Negro players in the Baseball Hall of Fame. In 1971, Kuhn and the Hall of Fame created a committee to select players who had been at least 10-year veterans of the Negro Leagues. The committee went on to induct dozens of deserving African American players, including Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, Buck O'Neil, and Cool Papa Bell. During Kuhn's first year in office, MLB set expansion franchises in Montreal, Seattle, San Diego, Kansas City. Both the National and American leagues were split into divisions, and the first league championship series games were played in October 1969. In 1971, Kuhn introduced night games to the World Series. Kuhn remained the commissioner in the commissioner's office until 1984, ending an era that saw unprecedented growth in the game. Between 1969, when Kuhn took office, and 1980, the league's total attendance tripled and television revenue increased by more than Uberoth. In a column for the New York Times in which he wrote, he should use his power fearlessly to protect the integrity of the game. The critics will call him self-righteous and moralistic. Have courage, ignore them. Kuhn continued to practice law and serve as a consultant until passing in 2007. The following year, Kuhn became the fourth commissioner to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. So there we go, our third inductee for 2008, Bowie Kuhn. All right, our next one. Oh, sorry. Bowie Kuhn here. Sorry, I'll hold up his card here. Forgot to do that. All right. So you can see a little bit close up there. Hopefully it shows up good on my stream. Clear picture. All right. Next is our fourth player. Oops. Sorry there, Barney. Barney Dreyfus. I just knocked Barney Dreyfus down. Sorry about that, buddy. Number 4 here. Number 4 is Walter O'Malley. All right, Walter O'Malley, inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2008. Primary team was the Los Angeles Dodgers, and he was an executive for them. We are going to concentrate on winning pennants, was his quotation. In the first week on the job as president and principal owner of the storied Brooklyn Los Angeles Dodgers franchise, Walter F. O'Malley declared his philosophy in 8 words. When asked to elaborate, he explained that he intended to build an organization to match the New York Yankees of the American League as a perennial powerhouse. Until that moment, O'Malley had been known as the youngest and least visible member of an ownership group that had brought some stability and success to a long-troubled franchise. But as of autumn 1950, the job was not yet finished. The team had won just 6 pennants and not a single World Series in 50 years, and talk of a pinstripe-style dynasty seemed overreaching. But was it a bit of blarney, some thought, from the warm and lively son of an Irish-American New Yorker? O'Malley would have let you conclude that he was weaving a dream, and his true expectations were more modest. A crafty poker player, he rarely showed his hands, but while he was quick with a joke and arm around his shoulder, he was in fact a happy and determined warrior. Anyone acquainted with the story of O'Malley's life leading up to the day he assumed control of the Dodgers, understood that if the new chief knew anything, it was how to win. Born in the Bronx in 1903 and raised in Queens when it was still largely rural, O'Malley came of age at a time when boys were schooled in fierce but fair competition. Theodore Roosevelt's Man in the Arena was the role model for young men. O'Malley, with his love of the outdoors and spirited approach to life, fit the bill. He showed he was a leader early, rising in the ranks of a new organization called the Boy Scouts. As a teenager, he left home for Culver Military Academy. At Culver, where strength and discipline were the order of every day, O'Malley's career was a bespectacled first baseman, ended with a smashed nose, but he distinguished himself among his peers, winning election to a battalion office and becoming editor of the school newspaper. Later at the University of Pennsylvania, he was the first and only to date person to be the president of both the junior and senior classes. He was a dapper, constantly smiling young man with twinkling eyes and a quick mind. In a sign of the things to come, he helped manage the school's sports program and was honored as the most popular fellow in his class. After earning a law degree at Fordham University in the midst of the Great Depression, O'Malley built a fortune that would lead to an owner's box at Ebbets Field. O'Malley thought, though, would say that his future happiness was set with his marriage to Kay Hansen, literally the girl next door at the O'Malley family summer home in Long Island. Kay was a bright and beautiful young woman who tried to talk Walter out of loving her because she had been treated for cancer and worried about being a burden to him. With all the certainty he later displayed in business, Walter refused to be dissuaded. Irving Berlin's Always became their song, and the marriage would last a lifetime. He playfully nicknamed her my manager. As Dodgers fan long before her husband acquired a piece of the team in 1944, Kay O'Malley became a fixture at Ebbets Field, where she always kept score and knew everything about the players, including their children's birthdays. She may have known the game better than her husband, but Walter O'Malley understood what made people and organizations tick. He made a detailed study of baseball management and was ready to create his first truly modern franchise. To make the Dodgers win, O'Malley named executives who would enjoy extraordinary authority and longevity. The two men most responsible for putting a team on the field, Lafayette Fresno Thompson and Emil Buzzy Bavasi, would each spend more than 20 years with the team and most of it working for O'Malley. Walter let you do your job, and that was the key. Bavasi recalled recently, that went for managers too. O'Malley hired only 2 managers in the time he ran the franchise. His first, Charlie Dressen, led the team to pennants in 52 and 53, and his second was Walter Alston, who would serve for 23 years, winning 7 pennants and 4 World Series titles. In O'Malley's first season as Dodgers president, only Bobby Thompson's famous playoff home run for the Giants kept the team from going to the World Series. But with the likes of Jackie Robinson, Duke Snider, and Carl Furillo on the field, the Dodgers grabbed the flag in the next 2 years, establishing themselves as Yankees-style winners. Except for one thing, they kept losing the series to the Bronx Bombers. Finally, with Alston in the dugout, the Dodgers team that would become writer Roger Kahn's Boys of Summer won the Fall Classic in 1955. O'Malley's team had done what no Dodgers owner had ever done. He brought home a championship, and there was joy in Flatbush. Unfortunately, O'Malley had trouble matching the team's victory in the tougher game of stadium politics. From the moment he became involved with the Dodgers, O'Malley knew the Ebbets Field was running out of time. Expensive repairs kept the place open, but with fewer than 800 parking spots, it wasn't suited for the coming age of suburbs and automobiles. Worst yet, it was hardly the family-friendly environment that O'Malley knew the future required. A decade of scouting sites, raising money, lobbying, and negotiating led to naught as New York development czar Robert Moses prohibited a new stadium in Brooklyn and offered only a site in the Queens. At the same time, concerted efforts by Los Angeles officials persuaded O'Malley that the big league baseball would work best on the West Coast. Faced with leaving Brooklyn one way or another, he chose to be a pioneer and, along with the New York Giants owner Horace Stoneham, made the big league game truly national. The choice ended an era in Brooklyn and began one in Los Angeles, where O'Malley would make his vision of Major League Baseball a reality. One season later, Stoneham would move his Giants to San Francisco. The stadium was the key, and by 1957, O'Malley had already been working on it for a dozen years. He had consulted with legendary architect Buckminster Fuller, who imagined a geodesic dome for the Dodgers and experimented with engineering Emil Prager on a small park nestled into the landscape at the famous Dodgertown Spring Training Complex in Florida. O'Malley envisioned a 56,000-seat privately owned park in Los Angeles that would represent near perfection for players and fans. Dodger Stadium was designed to be a classic of California modern architecture with pastel colors and gracefully curved lines. The terraced and landscape site would allow fans to leave their cars at nearby same level as their seats. Once inside, they would get their baseball framed with spectacular views of mountains and palm trees. Of course, it would take a few years to build Dodger Stadium. In the meantime, the team would play at Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, which was the worst place in the majors for a game, but no one seemed to care. Los Angeles was baseball crazy, and O'Malley was welcomed with a parade and enormous crowds. More than 78,000 for the first game. The Dodgers coming was the most exciting thing anyone could ever remember, recalled James Hahn, honorary bat boy for the first game and future mayor of Los Angeles. The sight of all those people filling the Coliseum was something you would never forget. You knew Walter O'Malley made it possible. Hold on a second, guys. So the Dodgers set a series game attendance record over 92,000, and in the regular season hosted 2 million fans for the first time. Dodger Stadium opened to rave reviews in 1962 at the house that O'Malley built. The Dodgers would win 3 more pennants and 2 more championships before he retired as president in 1969. During his tenure as president, O'Malley posted a record unequaled in the National League. No other team would win more games, pennants, and World Series or draw more fans. Along the way, he and Stoneham proved that Major League Baseball could thrive on a national basis and open the door for the game to expand 13 more American cities over the next 50 years. After transferring the Dodgers presidency to his son, Peter O'Malley, would serve as chairman of the board. He spent a record 28 years of the executive board of Major League Baseball and advised owners as they adapted to the arrival of a players' union and free agency. He worked on baseball internationally, beginning with a team tour of Japan in 1956, before his death in 1979, which came a few weeks after Kay passed away. O'Malley would spread his gospel of friendly management to university training programs and other sports. In 1978, he saw the team run by his son set a record for attendance of more than 3.3 million home fans. He was elected into the Hall of Fame. Before he was elected into the Hall of Fame, O'Malley was recognized by the national media as one of the last century's most powerful sports figures. Both when asked about the general owner, broadcaster Vince Scully focused on the man, not the accomplishments. He had a personality that was welcoming, it was his nature to reach out to people. And Scully said before the start of the 2008 series, and I never saw him discouraged. In a lifetime in baseball made Walter O'Malley wealthy, influential, and happy. Those who knew him would remember a big, outgoing fellow who drew people close and cherished most his son, daughter, Terry, 13 grandchildren, and above all, Kay, his manager, whom he always loved. So he was our fourth Hall of Famer. Now we're going to move on to number 5, getting closer to the end here. Billy Southworth. Billy Southworth. Billy Southworth. He was a manager of St. Louis Cardinals. 3 winningest managers are truly legendary: Tony La Russa, Red Schoendienst, and Whitey Herzog. Each have guided their St. Louis teams to a title. The trio represents only part of the great tradition of Cardinals managers. In alphabetical order, 13 Hall of Fame managers are the 13 Hall of Fame managers as of 2008 are Rogers Breshnan, Roger Connor, Frank Frisch, Herzog, Roger Hornsby, Miller Huggins, La Russa, Bill McKinney, Kid Nichols, Branch Rickey, Schoendienst, Joe Torre, and the man who guided the Cardinals dynasty in the 1940s, Billy Southworth. Southworth might be the most underrated Cardinal manager of all times. In 5 full seasons and parts of 2 others with the Cardinals, Southworth compiled a .642 winning percentage and won 3 straight National League championships from 1942 to 1944, including beating the New York Yankees to win the 1942 World Series and the city rival St. Louis Browns to capture the 1944 Streetcar Series. Southworth's Cardinals won 106, 105, and 105 games in succession from 1942 to 1944, marking the only time in history that a team has won 105 games or more in 3 straight seasons. Even his second-place team in 1941 and 1945 did well, winning 97 games and 95 games, respectively. Herzog, who grew up just across the Mississippi River in Illinois, was an early fan of Southworth. He was kind of my idol in high school, said Herzog. He won 3 pennants with the Cardinals and another with the Braves in 1948, and in those days, you had to manage and coach third base. Hall of Famer Stan Musial joined the Cardinals in late 1941 and spearheaded the team's 3 straight National League pennants from 42 to 44. We had some great clubs with him as our manager, Musial said. And he was a very good manager. We are all young, but he treated everybody fairly. Schoendienst cracked the big leagues in 1945, which was Southworth's last year as the Cardinals manager. I like Billy. He was a good man, Schoendienst said. He relied on some of the older guys with him. For instance, he had Terry Moore as the captain of the club, but if you missed a sign, he'd grab you right now. Schoendienst also credited Southworth with a different use of the bullpen than was customary. He was one of the first managers who changed pitchers in the middle of an inning in the 8th or 9th innings. Dick Williams, a St. Louis native, who along with Southworth was a member of the class of 2008 who admired Billy the Kid as he was growing up, a member of the Cardinals and St. Louis Browns, not whole gangs. Williams even got a Southworth autograph. And when he was managing the Oakland Athletics in 1972 World Series, Williams revived a Southworth trick maneuver, the fake intentional walk, which Williams had read about Southworth doing. "It worked," said Williams, who bamboozled Cincinnati Reds catcher Johnny Bench by having catcher Gene Tennis fake as if he was going to call for an intentional ball before the pitcher threw a strike. "He lost his game, and I lost my game that day, but it still worked," said Williams. Southworth broke into the big leagues as an outfielder with the Cleveland Naps in 1913 and went to the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Boston Braves, and the New York Giants before being acquired by the Cardinals from the Giants in June 1926. He hit .317 with the Cardinals, and that season he helped lead them to the team city's first for Bill McKenney, who was dispatched to replace Southworth at Rochester AA of the International League. Southworth won the pennant in Rochester, but McKenney won the pennant with the Cardinals. However, Cardinals owner Sam Rendon became first disenchanted that the Cardinals had lost the World Series to the New York Yankees in 4 games and that McKenna had walked Babe Ruth only once, as opposed to the 11 free passes Ruth received in the 1926 when the Cardinals beat the Yankees. After Ruth went for 10 for 16 in the series, hitting 3 home runs in Game 4 off the Cardinals, Breeden decided McKenzie needed a change. But Southworth alienated some of the players who thought their new manager was too harsh and aloof. When the club was struggling in July, Brandon reversed the switch, bringing McKenney back to the majors and farming out Southworth again. More than a decade later, Southworth improbably was brought back from Rochester in 1940 to replace Ray Blades after being demoted in 1929. Southworth won 3 straight pennants at Rochester before going back to the Giants organization as a coach in 1933. Southworth left the Giants after getting into a disagreement with manager Bill Terry, but had resurfaced with the Cardinals when the general manager's Branch Rickey hired him as a special instructor for the themed tryout camps. One of the players Southworth discovered in 1935 at one of the camps was future Hall of Famer Enos Slaughter. Returning to the Cardinals, manager a mellower Southworth brought the Cardinals home a third place finish in 1940 and led the St. Louis Swifties to a second place finish in 97 wins in 1941. Musial joined the club that September and would lead Southworth's club to 3 National League pennants from 1942 to 44 and the World Series championship in 1942 and 44. Without both Slaughter and Musial in the War of 1945, the Cardinals still won 95 games and finished just 3 games behind the Chicago Cubs for the National League title. Southworth left the Cardinals after the seasons to take a better offer from owner Lou Perini with the Boston Braves and managed that club to the World Series. In 1948, Southworth's Braves, thought I heard something out there, won the National League pennant behind the Spawn and Sane and Pray for Rain combination of 24-game winner Johnny Sane and 15-game winner Warren Spahn. But the Braves lost the World Series to the Cleveland Indians 4-2 as Sane and Spahn won once each, but got little help. Southworth took a leave of absence because of illness, 55 and 54. He returned for another full season in 1950, going 83 and 71, before lasting just 60 games in 1951, then stepping down again. His record parallels any of the all-time great managers. In 6 of his 9 full seasons, Southwest teams won 90 or more games. In 4 of his 9 full seasons, Southwest teams reached the World Series. In a managing career of 1,748 games, Southwest teams were 340 games above 500. So again, William Howard Southworth was our 5th Hall of Famer inductee for 2008. Now we'll move on to our final one for this video series today. All right, we've got, for our last inductee, Dick Williams. Inducted in 2008. Primary team was the Montreal Expos, and he was a manager. But again, like I said earlier and stuff, this is his player card when he played for the Brooklyn Dodgers back in 1953. 52, 53 type era. Right, put him back there in his rightful spot there. Richard Hirschfeld Williams, 2008 Hall of Famer, Montreal Expos, and was the manager. Richard Hirschfeld, Dick Williams, had a nice career on the field for a variety of Major League ball clubs at a number of spots all across the diamond during his 13-year playing career. However, it was in the dugout, using his mind as a baseball manager, that he would earn his spot among baseball's immortals. Dick Williams proved to be one of baseball's best managers at turning a team's fortune around. It all started when he inherited the Boston Red Sox in 1967, a team that had finished next to last in the previous season. Not much was expected of the Sox, but Williams surprised the baseball world and led them to an impossible dream, coming within one win of a World Series championship. We didn't know how to study the game, explained Red Sox first baseman George Scott. Dick showed us how to do it. He pressed the right buttons for everyone on that team. Williams took over the Oakland Athletics after their second place finish. Okay, sorry, it was telling me my signal was lost. I was trying to make sure it was adjusted back in sync again. So it all started when he inherited the Boston Red Sox in 1967. All right, not much was expected of the Sox, but Williams had surprised the baseball world and led them to an impossible dream, coming within one win of a World Series championship. We didn't know how to study the game, explained the Red Sox first baseman George Scott. Dick showed us how to do it, and he pressed the right buttons for everyone on that team. Williams took over the Oakland Athletics after their second place finish in 1970 and led them to the American League pennant. He followed that up with 2 straight World Series championships, which prompted eccentric A's owner Charlie Finley to proclaim Dick Williams is the best manager I've ever had. I ought to know. I fired enough of them. Finley wasn't the only owner enamored with Williams. Yankee owner George Steinbrenner thought so much of Williams he tried to hire him twice unsuccessfully. Once after he had a falling out with Charlie Finley, and Finley wouldn't let him out of his contract. And once again after the tragic death of Billy Martin in 1989, at which point Williams declared himself too old to manage again. Dick Williams had a captious personality and didn't sit well with everyone. I don't want to mellow, Williams said. I'd rather be known as a winner and a poor loser. As time went on, however, he did seem to mellow. In his final season as skipper of the Seattle Mariners, outfielder Mike Kingery explained, he's been great to me and other players. Very positive, When we do something well, he tells us, and when we do something wrong, he encourages us. Upon his retirement from the game, it took Williams 20 years to earn election into the Hall of Fame, an honor that fellow class of 2008 inductee Goose Gossage felt was long overdue. I was elated to see Dick got in. He deserved it. He's one of the best managers of all time, in my opinion, and he's the best manager I've ever played for, and that's taking in some great managers. So again, our last Hall of Fame inductee here, Dick Williams. This is when he played for the Brooklyn Dodgers, 1953 series card. So there we have it. All 6 of 2008 inductees for that year into Cooperstown. So thank you all for joining me. I did pretty good. I kept it just under an hour. Sorry I wasn't able to be live today, but I hope you enjoy viewing this when you watch it on Friday. I got a busy day tomorrow. It's Thursday tomorrow. I'm going to be getting ready for our first summer garage sale. And it turns into a big event for me because in my garage, I get my baseball cards all set up and moved from a different location over here to just try and sell some of my product at the garage sale. So it's fun when I do that, along with things the wife wants to get rid of, some old furniture, different things like that. We're trying to downsize, get rid of some things so that if we do decide to do something else later, we're able to. So I thank you for joining me today as we went through the video series for 2008 inductees. So tune in tomorrow. I'll have a video ready for tomorrow too, for Saturday, for our box break Saturday. A box break Saturday. And I'll be posting that video on Saturday morning also. So have a great weekend coming up and see you around the channels. This is Don Blomdahl, Hall of Fame Veteran Sports Cards and Collectibles from Arlington, Washington, saying goodbye for now and tune in next time. Bye now. Like, subscribe, share. If you do get a chance, check out my Patreon. Go to my About Me page on my YouTube channel. And then you can also see the information if you click on the tab there too of future giveaways. The next tier is going for 555 subscribers. So join with me along the way as we move up the channels to 1,000 subscribers. Then I can jump off my webcam here and start doing it on my cell phone. All right? Go Mariners. All right. So have a great and wonderful weekend, and we'll see you around the channels. Bye for now. Take care.